All right. We are in, before we get any further, next Sunday is, we will not be meeting here in this room, okay? So if you know where the Vine and the Branches class is with JR and Becky, we have been invited back, so you guys must have been good last time, because they said they didn't mind if you guys came at all. So we'll be down there as a class next week, and then that'll be the day Becky and I will be returning back to Kingsville. So keep that in mind. So we're going to look at Ruth chapter 3 today, and then whatever their lesson is next week is what you guys will have. I don't have any idea what their lesson is, but it's in the Bible somewhere. So just find it and read it. And then on the first week of June, first day of June actually too, we will finish our study of Ruth, and we'll do Ruth chapter 4. Now, in Ruth chapter 3, this is well, how do I say this? This is an interesting chapter. There are things that are said, things that take place, that when we first look at them, may not make sense to us. It may appear to be something different than is really intended. I don't know if anybody has looked at that this week to see about this. But the question that I want us to keep in mind as we look at the verses is what is really going on. Because it's easy to let our mind wander and to think about things that, why is that here? Is this is in the Bible kind of thing? So what we'll see as we go through this, it is not what it appears to be. Okay, there are some major spiritual truths in this passage. Some things that we need to look at in order to better understand and how it fits into the story of Ruth. Okay, so we know that Ruth is a widow. She's living with her mother-in-law Naomi. They live in they have moved back to Bethlehem. We know that Ruth has been going behind the people that were reaping the barley crops and gathering the excess there. And we know that Ruth has had a conversation with Boaz. We have at least one recorded conversation with him. And the whole thing is being worked out according to God's plan. Remember in chapter 2, it said something about, as it turned out, that she was in the field of Boaz. Well, it's more than as it turned out. It's God's plan. All this is coming together. So, I think what I want to do, and then we'll go back and get smaller bites. But I think what I want to do is eat the whole elephant the first time through. I'm going to read all Ruth 3, and then we're going to go back and break it down a little bit, okay? So let's look at Ruth 3, verse 1. As we're reading this, if you guys have questions, remember what those are. If you are curious about the meanings of things, remember what those are, whatever it might be. And then when we're done, I'll tell you, I don't know, and we'll go from there. So let's see. It says, one day Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not try to find a home for you where you will be well provided for? Is not Boaz, with whose servant girls you have been, a kinsman of ours? Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash and perfume yourself and put on your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." "I will do whatever you say," Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. And when Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. And Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned and discovered a woman lying at his feet. I'm sure that's startling. "I am your servant, Ruth." He says, "Who are you?" "I am your servant, Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he replied. "This kindness is greater than that which you have showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All my fellow townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good, let him redeem. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized and said, Don't let it be known that a woman came to the threshing floor." He also said, "Bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out." When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "How did it go, my daughter?" Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, "He gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Then Naomi said, "Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today." Clear as mud, right? What in the world is going on here? I've always liked the story of Ruth, but that chapter always perplexed me a little bit until I did some deeper study on it to find out.
Either symbolism or their
Yeah,
tradition.
what is it? Is it symbolic? Is there
Tradition or what?
Yeah, what is? There's a lot about their culture. Maybe we don't understand. Maybe we need to look out and figure out. So let's go through these a few verses at a time, starting with 1 through 4. One of the keys to understanding this whole passage is found in verse 1, where it says, "One day Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, 'My daughter, should I not try to find a home for you where you will be provided for?'" In the NIV, it says a home for you. I think in the ESV, it said seek rest for you, perhaps.
Mine says security.
Some versions say security for you. What we have here is Naomi feels responsible for Ruth. Okay? it is because of Naomi's situation when her husband died, and then Ruth's husband and Ruth's brother-in-law died. It's because of that situation that Ruth is even in Bethlehem. She's from a different country. She has left all that behind with her little saying of commitment, wherever you go, I will go. Where your God is, I will serve your God, those kind of things. So Ruth has committed herself to taking care of Naomi. And it's one of the many acts of kindness that we've seen in the book of Ruth, which has been one of the themes, the godlike, never-ending kindness that we see. All the characters seem to have it. Ruth, Boaz, Naomi. And so when we look at that, that's one of the things that this is about. But if we go back to chapter 1, verse 9, this is after Naomi's husband has died, after Ruth and Orpah's husbands have also passed away. And Naomi's getting ready to go back to Bethlehem because she hears there's food there now, there's grain. But she says in verse 9, may the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. What Ruth is trying to do here, her plan is what Naomi is trying to do here, her plan is for Ruth to go, and all the details are there about she's supposed to wait till Boaz, because he is a kin of theirs, the kinsman redeemer that can marry someone who is a widow that's been in the family to help take care of her, is the basic idea. So Naomi goes into this detailed plan. You're going to wait till night, but before that, she's going to take a bath. She's going to put on perfume. She's going to put on her best clothes. The things that are said there are very much what would have been expected of a lady that was going to get married. Okay, getting dressed for that special reason. And then I saw a verse in the commentary that I wanted to share with you. It's in the book of Ephesians, but it's talking about where husbands are supposed to love their wives. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present herself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any blemish, but holy and blameless. The idea of the church preparing to be Christ's bride, or living as Christ's bride. So Naomi gives her all these details of the things that is going on. And so I think the question that we could ask, that we might not lead us down the road we want to go. What do you think Naomi's plan is? What do you think of Naomi's plan? When you first hear her plan, maybe imagine you're Ruth. You're from a different culture. What kind of thoughts might come into your mind if you were told this is what you're going to do? This is what we need to do.
Well, the first thing she tells her, I must find a home for you.
Okay.
So if she was paying attention, she knows that Naomi is doing this for Ruth's good.
Okay. And then that's the idea of the rest. The rest is going to come when Ruth finds a husband and has her own home. Okay. And Ruth is still a young lady here, and So the idea is, and that's really the goal of what Naomi is talking about. The goal is to take advantage of this, take advantage in a positive way, not trying to manipulate the circumstances, but take advantage of the fact that there is a kinsman who is eligible to marry Ruth. And if that happens, we've seen Boaz's character. We've seen he is a man of standing in the community. We've seen he is kind, he is God-fearing, all of these things. He is well known. He lives a life of integrity and those kind of things. So Naomi's goal is to get Ruth married
And
for Ruth's sake.
Yeah, she won't have to work so hard. She won't have to.
Right. Everything will be better for her as a wife rather than a foreign nomad who's wandering around from field to field eventually, could be looking for food. And if it's better for Ruth, it's going to be better for Naomi as well, right? So that's what she is wanting. It's also possible, we don't know the time frame between when Ruth's husband had passed away, but maybe she was, some people in that culture would have extended periods of mourning. And maybe this dressing up part is to symbolize that the mourning is over. She's ready to move on to the next chapter of her life. That could be a part of it as well. But I think there's something else that's going on here. Not only is she wanting Ruth not only is Naomi wanting Ruth to do this, but she's wanting Ruth to help make Boaz aware of, if he's not, or reminding if he is aware of, that he is a kinsman redeemer, that he has obligations according to what is taught in the book of Deuteronomy. The kin has obligations to take care of this. Now they also have the options to say no, but they're putting it out there so that Boaz will have to decide. And so that all takes place. I think what we need to understand is Naomi wants what is best for Ruth. And she's helping her be able to figure out what that is and how to get it. So, so she comes up with this rather elaborate plan, really.
Push things along a little bit.
That's right. That's right. and maybe as a guy, Boaz needed a push in the right direction. I'll say it. But maybe not, because I think, as we'll see, he had been thinking about it, because he's going to share some things. But all these things are setting the scene for the discussion, at least, of marriage. Okay. In the next part, something that shouldn't be surprising to us in what we've seen so far with Ruth and Naomi's relationship as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, is that Ruth trusts Naomi. She says in verse 5, I will do whatever you say. Her obedience to this plan says, so she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. Now the threshing floor, I picture it as concrete. Obviously it's not concrete, okay? But
Asphalt, it's asphalt.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think asphalt was around here.
It wasn't.
But they harvest the grain and they take it outside of the city, okay? And there's a flat spot where they pile the grain up, and then they're gonna winnow it either with rocks, or sometimes they'd have ox walk across it, and it cracks the hard outer shell, and then it's all down there, and then they would take it and they would throw it up in the air, basically. The chaff would blow in the wind. That's why it's outside the city, is where there's more wind, and then the hard kernels would fall to the ground. Harvest time was a festive time, was a time of celebration. So why is the owner of the field sleeping where they're winnowing that grain?
To protect the grain.
To protect the grain.
Protect it.
And they may have been taking turns during the day, harvesting, bringing it in, and maybe, because we know that it says this is the place where the men are.
Yeah, it must be a man's
The
only
man's
area.
part, and they eat and they drink to the point then when Boaz goes to sleep, okay? And that's part of the instructions. Wait till he's done eating and drinking, and he goes to sleep, and then do this. And so Ruth does it. But the reason that he's there, and it says he goes over by the far edge of the pile. So maybe there's someone else on the other edge of a pile or whatever. But to protect it. You've done all this work to harvest it and to get it ready to sell at the market or whatever. And so you're supposed to be there to help protect it. It doesn't mean that you can't sleep, obviously. And it may mean that he's sleeping while somebody else is winnowing the grain, and then they're going to switch at some point. You know, there's a lot of questions we don't understand on this. But what we do understand is that Ruth continues to be committed to Naomi and is obedient. She trusts Naomi, and she goes about and does exactly what Naomi said. On your paper I wrote, what is going on here, part 1. And then the next one is what is going on here, part 2. Because it is different. But Naomi said, or Ruth says she will do that. So she, in verse 6, so she went down to the threshing floor, did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned and discovered a woman lying at his feet. Everything that Naomi has told Ruth to do, she does, and it's working out. Okay? And the picture here is so beautifully described for us. We can imagine Boaz laying down by a pile of grain with his cloak over him after he's eaten and drank. He's going to sleep. And she uncovers his feet, and she lies down. Seems weird to us, okay? It's because it is. But we're gonna find out what the significance of that in the next verse. So,
Well, it's weird to us now, but it was
Right.
part of their culture then.
exactly.
So Ruth isn't that familiar with the new culture. She's
Right.
still learning, and that's why Naomi is helping her.
Naomi is the experienced, well-respected mother-in-law. Ruth is listening and following, because I think Ruth wants that rest, that home that Naomi has talked about in Ruth chapter 1:9, and again here, the idea of rest and being with and having another husband. So, we have that. I always kind of chuckle when in that 8th verse, he was startled and he turned and discovered a woman lying on his. Yeah, that's startling, because it was the men's floor, obviously, or wherever. But
And by being at his feet, would that be like a sign of respect or submission, maybe?
yeah, and the next part of the verses explain that a little bit more. But that would have been, and Ruth is going to say, "I'm your maidservant."
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to say, "Hey, I'm your potential wife," although that is going to be implied by some of her words. So what I want to do is, if someone will read 9 through 15 for us again, and then 9 through 14 again. No, let's do 15. Would someone read that, please?
He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." And he said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning." So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another, and said, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." And he said, "Bring the garment that you are wearing and hold it out." So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. And then she went into the city.
Okay. So let's do a little dissecting here, especially in verse 9. There's a lot there. I find it interesting that when he is startled, he finds a woman sleeping or laying at his feet. Okay. And according to what's happened, we know that she's put on perfume, and I don't know if that's what startled him, or the cold feet, or maybe that's where cold feet comes from. I don't know.
That's what I was wondering, if that was why she uncovered his feet, to make him cold so he wake up.
But what I find interesting is he says, "Who are you?" Now, we're an observer looking in. Okay, we know it's Ruth. Naomi knows it's Ruth. Ruth knows it's Ruth. But we know something here that Boaz doesn't know, at least for a little bit. and he says, "Who are you?" And I think that reflects on his character. Because if he hadn't asked that, he might assume, and maybe rightfully so, that it was a prostitute from the town that came to lay at his feet in hopes of some kind of sexual favors or whatever. And in that culture, that probably would have been.
Well, he had seen her before.
Right, at
So-
night, and
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
dark.
That's why I
dusk
wondered if it
dawn.
was because it was dark or if he was
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah.
you know, what are your intentions
Right.
instead. So,
But so he asked her, and look at how she answers. "I am your servant." Okay. And again, we've seen all the way through their relationship and through this book, their kindness, their respect, their willingness to work, or her willingness to work, all those things. But she says, "I am a servant." And then the interesting part, "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer." Now, I looked in 6 or 7, 6 it looks like, different translations. Because I wanted to see about this garment that is spread over her. Here are the words that appear in other translations. And I didn't write down what the translations were, but we can find them if we need to. Garment, wings, cloak, covering, and then also take your maidservant under your wing. This is where I stop talking and you start talking, and you explain to me what's going on there.
Well, I think he's a very religious and spiritual person, and I think he perhaps realizes that it is not a coincidence that he continues to see Ruth in these different places and in different ways.
Okay.
And it probably doesn't go unnoticed that she's smelling a whole lot better than she has, you know, and is wearing her best garb. But he also knows that she's virtuous because that's been said before. So I think the "who are you" is more of a rhetorical,
Okay.
what is it that I don't know I need to know?
Okay.
I think this version here, the New King James Version that says wing, I think she's asking for his, to be accepted by him as more than a maidservant,
Okay.
wanting his protection.
If we're blatantly honest, I think she's thrown it out there, the idea of, "Will you marry me?"
Yeah.
Without
What are
saying
your
it.
intentions, young man?
She's courting him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she's
And
giving
being a man, he has to be led along.
and she's giving him the explanation is that you're a redeemer to
Right.
me. So which is perhaps new information to him. Who knows?
Yeah, perhaps, but I think he knows, because he says there's one, it's like he's done
Yeah.
some research. Whatever and I don't know the hierarchy. I know it starts with, if the man dies, his brother should do that, but it continues on to uncles, nephews, different, all the way down the line, whatever it is, okay? And we don't know where Boaz fits in to that, but he responds, there is one other who is closer. I think he's been on genealogy.com
Yeah, after their
He knows.
first-
He knows the chain.
and he's been trying to find out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he knows, and now it's time for him to act on the knowledge that he knows about.
I know you know. Now you know I know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I think the thing, spread the corner of your garment or your cloak or your wings or whatever. Go back to chapter 2, verse 12. Boaz, this is when he and Ruth are in the field, and he's given all the instructions about leave the extra grain, and Boaz or Ruth says, I don't know why you are so kind to me. And he responds, I know what you've done for your mother-in-law, how kind you have been, all these things. But in verse 12 he says, and may the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Now, I think I mentioned last week that Boaz's blessing on Ruth, as he's asking for God to do that, he is going to be the answer to the very blessing he gave Ruth. May God cover you. It's the idea of God protecting you. It says, may you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. She has moved to Bethlehem. She is under God's care there. She has pronounced and announced her faith in the God of the Jewish people. She's a Moabite, but she has renounced her God's relationship with the Moabite and said, wherever you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. And she has said that to Naomi. And now when Boaz says, may you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. She has come there for safety and refuge and all, and to spread the corner, according to the NIV version, of your cloak, of your garment over her, is symbolically saying, I will take care of you.
Gives me the image of a mother hen and her chick.
Exactly, and that's a picture there. It's not of angel wings, it's of birds, a mother bird of some kind covering up the baby and protecting it. And the symbolic picture is his cloak, his garment, that he's using to cover up with at night, spread it over her so that she will be safe, so that he will take care of her. And plain and simple, she's saying, no, she's not saying I think. I am marriage worthy, and I want you to be my husband. Which sounds anti-cultural in a male-dominated society. It's because it is. Ruth is taking a giant risk here. Okay? First of all, going to the floor, the threshing floor, with just where it's just supposed to be men, and they're celebrating the harvest and whatever, this men's night out. Meet you at the threshing floor, whatever it is. Okay, so she takes a risk in doing that. She takes a risk in waiting till everyone's asleep, and then going over to Boaz, uncovering his feet, laying there, and then having this conversation with him, and even suggesting, you are a kin, you can marry me, and then it'll be, then you will take care of me. All of these things are very much anti-cultural. She is putting herself out there in such a way that she says, I think I'm trusting that you will do the right thing. Now, if Boaz wasn't the man of character that we've seen, okay, he could have ruined Ruth by just saying, "What are you doing here in the middle of the night? What are you doing sleeping at my feet? You know this is for men only. You know all these things." Instead, he goes along with what she says. He says there is a kinsman that I need to talk to first. There's one closer. But Ruth's request is when he basically says, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Her request is, "I want to be your wife."
Well, she lays at his feet, uncovering his feet,
Right.
saying, "I'm your servant."
Right.
And what did Jesus do to the disciples when he wanted to?
He was a servant at their feet.
He washed their feet.
Yeah. And we see beautiful pictures of kindness and love and respect all throughout this book and how they treat one another. Now, look in verse 10. It's not, he says, "The Lord bless you, my daughter." He calls her my daughter, I think, twice in this passage. But he says, "The Lord bless you. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier." The kindness of asking me to be your kinsman redeemer. Okay? And reminding me of that. You have not run after younger men, whether rich or poor. She could have made herself available to other men, but she's wanted to do the right thing, the way that the scriptures of Deuteronomy tell her that this is the way it should be done. And then he says, "Don't be afraid." And he tells her it's going to work out one of two ways. Either the fellow kinsman who has first right of refusal, okay? And they didn't have to say yes. I was reading about that in Deuteronomy 25, I think. They didn't have to say yes. But if they didn't say, if enough people said no, then the woman would just be left on her own as a widow the rest of her life. But Boaz says, "I will do for you what you have asked." It's going to end in one of two ways. Either the other relative will marry you, and if he doesn't, then I will, what Boaz does. So there's hope. There's also uncertainty, right? She knows she's going to be married and be taken care of, but is it by this person that she doesn't even know yet? Or is it by Boaz? So there's a picture of hope, and that ninth verse, we've had 2 or 3 verses like this in this book, where there's a turning point of things happening. And that 9th verse is an important verse like that. Boaz wants to protect her. Look, he says in verse 13, "Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good, let him redeem. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." Well, she lies there for a while, but before it becomes daylight, where people might see, not wanting to disgrace herself, not wanting to disgrace Boaz, okay? She waits, and then she goes back. She didn't want it to be known that there was a woman on the threshing floor. And he says, no, wait, let me give you some more grain. He's already given her earlier abundance amounts of grain, remember?
5.5 bushels.
Yeah, and we don't know what these 6 measures are, but he basically takes her outer shawl and fills it with 6 measures.
Mine says ephahs.
Okay.
So that
okay.
was what,
That's it.
2 liters, I think, was an ephah. I think is
Wow.
what we said last
So he
week.
gives her, but
Or 2/3 of a bushel.
her, in her risk of putting herself out there, in her risk of trusting what Naomi has said and what would take place on that night, Boaz rewards her with material blessings even on this, and gives her more grain to take back to Naomi. Finding rest, okay, it's a process. There's hope. There's still some details to be worked out, right? And those details will be worked out on Sunday, June 1st at 9 o'clock in the upper room.
Tune in
I
then.
don't know how that commercial got in there, but now watch what happens as we've seen throughout the story. Ruth and Naomi, when they're together, there's conversations about what went on. We know that Naomi really does have Ruth's best interest in mind, but in verse 16, it says, when Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her, and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. Remember 2 weeks ago now, when I said that the last verse of each chapter introduces the next chapter. The word wait there, and I didn't look it up in other translations. In verse 18, then Naomi said, wait. Does anybody else have a different word there? Is it wait in all of those?
What verse was it?
18.
It says wait.
Mine says sit still.
Sit still. Okay, that's good. That's wait.
Mm-hmm.
It is literally the words for sit. And when we get into next week's lesson, what's going to happen? They're going to be sitting at the gate, taking care of the legal thing. But the idea, Naomi says, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. So wait expectantly. I think it also talks about the idea of trust. Trust that God's going to work this out, but also trust in Boaz when she says the man will not rest. That seems kind of almost, I don't know, play on words or what, but the chapter begins with the idea of, in verse 1, right, of my daughter-in-law, should I not try to find a home for you? Or, which goes back to verse 1, or chapter 1, verse 9. A place of rest with a different husband. So the theme of rest is now coming. We've had kindness emphasized numerous times. We've had provision, but now the theme seems to be switching to the idea of rest. She says, wait, my daughter. And I think knowing Boaz's character, he's not going to forget about this. He's not going to put it on the back burner somewhere on the to-do list. Move it from the bottom to the top, is what he's doing. But the idea here is wait. Something's going to happen. And that's what we see in the next chapter. But the idea of this waiting, trusting, Boaz's reputation is well known. Naomi says he will take care of this. We will have a resolution to your situation. So as we look at that, what she's really waiting for is her Redeemer, her kinsman Redeemer that can change the circumstances that she's in and offer her a better life. Now, as I was reading this, I had a question for you guys. Do people regard you as someone who will keep your word when given to someone else? I mean, I'd like to say
I hope
yes.
so.
I hope so, right? But see the picture of his character again, his reputation. He has given you his word that he's going to take care of it. And he's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He has given you his word that he will be this Redeemer for you, or you that or this other man will. Either way, you're going to be taken care of. And so that led me to the idea of thinking about our Redeemer, and who is Jesus Christ, and the idea of us listening to his words and knowing that he will follow through on what he says. Can we trust our Redeemer? I think so. Okay, and I think we can trust that he will redeem us in the same way as Boaz is going to learn in a different way. In the same way Boaz is going to redeem Ruth. Dependable, trustworthy, man of his word, a man of action. And you don't have to go any farther than the first verse of chapter 4, where it says, meanwhile Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. Or Boaz went up to the town gate and waited for this kinsman Redeemer to come through. So we'll pick that up, like I say, in a couple of weeks. But it's there's more and more things that we see where we look at Ruth, Naomi, and now Boaz in particular, that point us to Jesus Christ and his kindness and his sacrifice for us. So, all right, your questions or comments?
I was wrong on the ephah, not 2 liters, it's 22 liters, or 2/3 of a bushel. That's the size of it. So if she had 6 of those, it'd be like almost 6 bushels.
She's a strong woman.
That's a big
Big
shawl she
shawl.
had.
Yeah.
And a tough one too.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of them loose knit dudes.
In one section in mine, it questions that they meant ephahs instead that they meant C's, which are only 60 to 80 pounds, because the 6 ephahs would have been over 200 pounds.
Wow.
So they think that
Okay,
It's a
I think
typo.
I think we can get lost in the numbers here. The idea is the extra blessing.
Yeah, a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
A big blessing.
Yeah, a big blessing, so. All right, questions or comments that you might have? Tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. After we finish Ruth, we are gonna start a study in the book of Colossians. So that'll be the second weekend of June. And, I think that's when we're gonna start it. Unfortunately and unfortunately, we are traveling like we have never traveled this summer. And so there's gonna be 2 weeks in a row, and I don't know which one in June that we're going, so. We are open for anyone who wants to lead a Bible discussion. You pick your Bible verses. You lead the discussion with the class, tell them what you wanna study the week before. But if you think you'd wanna do that, let me know. If not, I may try to recruit someone to come in and take teaching. If not, if that doesn't happen, then we'll go back to finding branches if they want us, so. But if God gives you something that you're comfortable leading the class in Bible study that means a lot to you, let me know between, I know it's toward the end of June, so I'll give you the dates next time, but. As you can see, it's a very nice class. They won't throw rocks at you. They don't do any of those things.
I'm gonna be gone the last 2 weeks of June myself. Tractor shows.
I imagine that there are a lot of people that will be in and out from different times.
Kind of the last week of June, we're gone.
There may not be anybody here. Though.
So, yeah, might just be Connie and I going down there and hanging out.
Yeah, might be. Who knows? All right. Why don't we bow for prayer and we'll go. Paul, would you dismiss us? Please?
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, the opportunity we have to gather together and to study your word, Lord. We just thank you, Lord, for this picture of your character and the fact that we can trust you as our Redeemer, Lord. And just pray, Lord, you would open our hearts to the word that Jacob has. Just be with him and speak through him. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Sydney, I'm glad you were here this